Great, what a pile of comments from the chairman of the BBC there, as if over 75s are going to flying fig if they shut down the BBC. The announcement last night, as I say, the number 4.5 million Britons put under tough new virus restrictions following a spike in cases in the north. Straight to LBC's reporter in Manchester, Thomas Dunn, joins me now. Thomas.
Well, Nick, very worrying for the millions of people who live across Greater Manchester and parts of Lancashire and Yorkshire who will be waking up today with extra lockdown measures put in place. Still, quite a lot of uncertainty too about exactly what these new restrictions mean for them. We know that the government have issued the guidance that two households should not be allowed to meet each other indoors, which includes both inside a house and inside your garden. But Matt Hancock has been criticised by MPs up here on both sides of the dispatch box for not giving enough clarity on where this will be enforced. Of course, Eid celebrations are supposed to be getting underway for the large Muslim communities across these areas that have been affected here in the northwest and in parts of Yorkshire. But a lot of events have either been cancelled or will be going ahead but will be heavily risk assessed. Mo Congress lives in Blackburn, which has had extra measures put in place just over 2 weeks ago.
I'm getting so many phone calls, and there's just one message I'm receiving from everybody that it's just targeted. They obviously knew beforehand, and it's funny how they've implemented it so quickly. Within 3 hours, the mask rule was like 10 days beforehand or something. Even if it was 2 to 3 days, people have made preps, do you know what I mean? And people are running around and panicking up till now, until I've just released something to say Eid Salah will be going ahead in the mosque as they take the COVID measures. It's just caused unnecessary panic, and it's just put a big down on everybody.
Blackburn community worker ending Thomas Dunn's report. I should, of course, at this point say Eid Mubarak to everyone. I hope you have as successful a day as you can, although obviously it will be impacted by those restrictions. Details of how they were imposed last night. LBC's political analyst Theo Archie in the studio. Theo.
Last night we saw, Nick, the most significant tightening of lockdown restrictions since the first relaxation of rules back in May, as the government looked to avoid a second wave of coronavirus. 4 million people across Greater Manchester, East Lancashire and West Yorkshire are now being banned from meeting indoors. That came into force at midnight last night. Includes homes, pubs and restaurants. To give you an idea of the scale of the problem, Leicester hit 50 cases per 100,000 in the past week, but in the Lancashire town of Blackburn, a comparable number has topped out at 69. Health Secretary Matt Hancock said the reason parts of northern England had seen a spike was because people were not observing social distancing rules.
Across parts of northern England, we've seen an increase in the rates of coronavirus, and one of the reasons for that increase is that we've seen households gathering and not abiding by the social distancing rules, and that means that we've had to take the decision to ban households meeting together indoors in order to try to stop the spread of this virus, because we'll do whatever is necessary to keep the country safe.
Susan Hinchcliffe, the leader of Bradford Council, said she thought people were being too blasé as the restrictions were lifted.
So generally, and I think this is not just Bradford, but across the nation, people are a bit tired of hearing about it and tired of hearing about the rules, and people are getting a little bit too relaxed. People are starting to lose respect for the virus, and they're starting to not want to see what damage this can do to themselves and their family and friends. So we've got to be really careful to make sure those messages are strong and out there.
Graham Stringer, he's the Labour MP for Begley and Broughton in Greater Manchester, said he thought the government was overreacting.
I think the government, having made a mess of this as the response to this epidemic to start with, are now determined to take extreme action, so they're not accused of what they were guilty of at the start of this process, of delay and uncertainty, really. So I think they've gone from prevaricating to overreacting at the end of this process.
The government has just published a question and answer, factual question and answer, on what you should do if you live in one of these areas and what you can't do. And one of the questions is, can I still meet my family and friends to celebrate Eid? And it goes on to say, due to high infections rates, if you live in this area, you should not host or visit friends and family in each other's homes or gardens. It will shortly be illegal to do so unless specific exemptions apply. The advice goes on to say, we recommend that at this time, if possible, prayer, religious services take place outdoors.
Theo Archie reporting, thank you for that. So So how successful is this policy as we see now in parts of Lancashire and Yorkshire, and we've witnessed in Leicester, in Rochdale and other cities and towns? Let's turn to Dr. David Nabarro, who's Special Envoy on COVID-19 to the World Health Organization. Doctor, it's known over here as a whack-a-mole policy, as in you go for that part of Lancashire, you go for that part of Leicestershire or whatever. Do you support it? Is this the right way forward in your view? Good morning.
Good morning to you, Nick. Yes, I'm afraid I do support it, even though I realise just how irritating and indeed frustrating it is right at this point. We've always said the toughest part of dealing with any infectious disease is when your numbers are low and you're trying to stop them going up again. And yes, all over the world, as you get resurgence coming, you have to take rapid and really robust action, even when the numbers are small. And as that happens, people get very fed up. But it's necessary, Nick, and I want to really stress this. Unless you are rapid and robust when you see early signs of numbers climbing, you really are at risk of a further massive level of illness and death, and that's the last thing anyone wants anyway.
But you must understand, for many Britons, this is getting quite confusing, Doctor. Is it 7 days of self-isolation or is it 10? Should you use an air bridge? Should there be more? Should there be less? Can you go to a Spanish island but not the mainland? Can you have your friends round for Eid? It's not surprising people are getting a little frustrated, Doctor.
Of course. Nick, I do understand. Let me try to give my take on it and see how you react. There are certain things we know for sure about this virus. How it gets transmitted, we're pretty certain about. What impact it has on people, we're pretty certain about. But there are things that are coming out that are new, that give us a need sometimes to change policy. Actually, the World Health Organization, we said you should isolate for at least 10 days, ideally for 14. We've also been very clear that air bridges and other such mechanisms have to be put in place with a clear analysis of what's happening at either side in departure and arrival. But yes, there are changes because over time we're learning more about the virus, and that's what does lead to the sense of frustration and confusion you've just described. If I could just put one particular thing forward to people, it is this. We have to do everything possible to stop infections building up. We don't know where they're going to come, but we sometimes get clues. We will need to be local and quite focal in advice in different parts of the world. And that will mean that from time to time restrictions have to be imposed, and they will come very suddenly, because there's no point in having restrictions that are imposed gradually and then people do a lot of things to try to circumvent them.
I will leave it there, Doctor. Thank you for your time. Enjoy your weekend. Dr. David Nabarro, Special Envoy on COVID-19 to the World Health Organization, 13 minutes after 7. Now, today marks 6 months since what, do you imagine? 6 months since the first COVID-19 case here in the United Kingdom. Professor Sir Dave King, as former Government Chief Scientific Advisor, Chairman of the Independent Sage Group, can I put the same question to you, this idea of these whack-a-mole strategy? Do you support that, Professor? Good morning.
Well, I'm afraid I do. I think I'm completely with David Nabarro on this. The need for swift action in the Greater Manchester area is very clear. Where I am critical of the actions of the government is their response is always to manage this centrally. I believe there should be much clearer engagement with the local communities.
In what way?
In what way, Professor? Well, engaging with mayors, engaging with local communities through discussions. It's very, very important for us to understand cultural differences between different parts of our communities. And in particular, I think the problem is that we are finding these new outbreaks occurring very much in the more deprived areas of our cities, in Leicester, it was East Leicester, and it is the same thing happening across the north of the country at the moment.
But what if a mayor is recalcitrant, Professor? What if a mayor says, I don't want you shutting down my city?
I think that is a matter for discussion. If the mayor is recalcitrant, then of course government has to take the action that government must take. But I do think there has to be a much clearer degree of local community action and taking the local community along with government on
Germany, where yet more new evidence were placed to search in the hunt for the disappearance, of course, of Madeleine McCann. Just turned 7:16. LBC News headlines. Simon Conway.
The government's announced restrictions on different households meeting in parts of northern England in response to a spike in coronavirus cases. The Chancellor Rishi Sunak is being urged to protect the jobs of workers who've been shielding from COVID-19. And Donald Trump has backtracked on his idea to delay November's presidential election just hours after he suggested it. The weather hot for many today, a few thunderstorms for some later, a high of 35 degrees.
LBC Travel, I'm Joanne Webb. On the Underground, the Bakerloo line can't run northbound between Elephant and Castle and Queen's Park. It's because a train has broken down and then there are minor delays on the rest of the line. On the train, southeastern services remain suspended via Hither Green because of the ongoing engineering works. On the road, it's very busy on the M25 clockwise from junction 5 at the M26 to the Clackett Lane services, and that's for the ongoing roadworks. In Eltham, the South Circular Road remains closed westbound between the A2 and the Yorkshire Grey roundabout, and that's following a burst water main, and already it's very slow westbound on the A2 from Falconwood.
This is LBC.
You never know what's around the corner, but at least we can take the pressure off replacing that dodgy boiler. Get a quote from anyone with British Gas and choose to pay nothing for 3 months with interest-free credits of 2 years. You'll also get £150 off or £350 off if you're an existing British Gas home care customer. Offers end August 31st. British Gas, here to solve. Search British Gas new boiler. Conditions apply. British Gas new heating limited is a credit broker and uses a panel of lenders.
Make the worry now. 0345 6060 973 LBC.
As we open things up again, how do we keep safe? Max runs a cafe.
We've worked really hard to make the coffee shop COVID safe. Keep 2 metres apart, or 1 metre with extra precautions. Follow our new one-way system. Use the extra hand sanitizer, and try to stay at your table as much as possible. We can't wait to welcome everyone back, but please, remember the safety guidelines so we can all stay open.
Stay alert. Control the virus. Save lives. Gabriel's about to hit the 8-kilometer mark. No wonder he nearly forgot it's his cousin's birthday back in Bucharest. Luckily, with the Western Union app, he can send money fast for cash pickup in Romania. Go, Gabriel. Find out more at westernunion.com. This service is provided by Western Union.
For sprucing up your home at last. Carpet Right's after half-price sale on the choice of carpets and hard flooring is now on. Carpet Right for life.
Network Rail is upgrading the signalling through Hither Green between Saturday the 25th of July and Sunday the 2nd of August. Buses will replace trains for essential travel between Lewisham, Sidcup and Orpington. You may face longer journeys and queues for buses at busier times. So, if you're going to help your mum or celebrate a birthday from 3 months ago, please travel another way if possible. Plan ahead at networkrail.co.uk/Hither Green. The Southeast upgrade. A better railway is in the works.
Let's get back to the way we were, to fun, to the cinema, to gigs and galleries, the gym, the thrill of a stadium, to being with each other, to the things we love.
Testing is free, quick and vital to stop the spread of coronavirus. So let's get tested and get back to the things we love. If you're feeling unwell, get a free test now. Call 119 or go to nhs.uk.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
20 minutes after 7 is the time. Let me take you to the front page. Actually, all of the front pages, bar a couple, go with the development side. I can't actually imagine why you wouldn't splash this and put this across your front page. I know it's relatively late that the news broke, but it's a massive story. The Daily Telegraph, lockdown measures reimposed across the north. The Daily Mail, millions hit by new lockdown. The Daily Mirror, second wave fears, north in lockdown too. The Sun newspaper, lock of the north. There we are at the Times, home visits are banned for millions in the north there. Second lead, as it's called, is Donald Trump calling for an election delay over rigged. He calls it mail voting, we call it postal voting this side of the Atlantic. Well, of course, you've just heard on the LBC News Bulletin that's actually now, it would appear, been reversed, and the election is back on. Back to the headlines here. The virus rules tighten for north of England. Different households banned from meeting indoors. The health secretary households meeting and not abiding to social distancing, which is an interesting question, which we'll pick up in a minute. Let me just finish the front pages and I'll come back to it. So it's not all of them. The Daily Express says experts prove you can halt dementia. The Guardian says employers must not force shielding staff to return to work. We're looking at that later in the show. And the Metro has the naughty Tory is dumped by his wife. This is former Conservative MP Charlie Elphicke, who was a Kent MP for the Conservatives. Sadly, his marriage has come to an end. He was, of course, he chased a woman around a room singing "I'm a naughty Tory." He could be a jail Tory. He's freed on bail ahead of sentencing in September. And rather dramatically, his wife ended their marriage with a solitary tweet. 25 years she was married to him, saying she will not be commenting further after the decision. So obviously troubled times for him. Just coming back to this line then from the health secretary, we are trying to speak to him. Obviously he's a very busy individual, but he's saying the spread is largely due to households meeting and not abiding to social distancing. I wonder what it is. So if you're listening to me and you're one of these 4.5 souls, my heart goes out to you, not least because I appreciate for many of you and the way that part of the country is settled. A lot of you were looking forward to Eid and meeting with your family, and of course the advice is you cannot do that now. And your health is, I appreciate it's a holiday and I appreciate it's a day of celebration, but nothing's more important than the health of yours and your loved ones and possibly the vulnerable. But I wonder why it is. Let's explore some of this now with Health Secretary Matt Hancock. I'm pleased to say joins me now. Mr. Secretary of State, thank you for coming on. You're a very busy man this morning. What is the number that is reached by geographical area when you, your scientific and medical advisors say, uh-oh, we better press the button on lockdown? What will we get to? Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Well, we don't have a specific number. We look at all of the factors, and across parts of northern England, we've seen the rates of new cases going up over the past few weeks, and they've been stubbornly high in some areas. And the extra thing that we've seen is that was not just confined to the areas where we had been taking action previously, like in Blackburn, like in Oldham, but we're starting to see a wider rise in the community across Greater Manchester, East Lancs, and these parts of West Yorkshire, and that's why we took the action that we did yesterday.
So it doesn't hit a certain number, just for the purpose of the debate. It's not 500 a day or 500 a week that sounds an alarm.
That's right. We do look, of course, at all the statistics, but there isn't a specific threshold because you've got to look at all of the different data.
You're quoted as saying the spread is largely due to households meeting and not abiding to social distancing. How concerned are you that either, candidly, you failed to get the message across to folk in the north, or they're not listening, whichever it might be?
Well, we are worried that from the new information that we've got from our testing and tracing, that the biggest impact in terms of the number of contacts people have when they've tested positive is meeting other households at home and visiting friends and relatives. Much more cases there than in people going to work, and that's why we've taken this very targeted action. I appreciate that it is very, very significant for the people of the area affected, but we're not saying proposing any changes in terms of going to work or in terms of travel, but specifically about meeting other households and other than outside in public places. And I look, my heart goes out, like you were saying just before, my heart goes out to people. I get the impact of this. And not
particularly on a holiday for them as well, for many of those.
Particularly on a holiday. You know, the thing is that the disease thrives on social interaction, and that's one of the really sad things about it. And
do you understand? People are confused, Secretary of State. Is it 7 days of self-isolation? Is it 10? Should you go an air bridge or should you not? Can you fly at all? Can you go to a Spanish island? Can you go to the Spanish mainland? It's not surprising people are confused, Secretary of State.
Well, what I do appreciate is that we do have to move fast sometimes in order to control the virus, and the vast majority of people are following the rules that we've had to put in place. They're not the sorts of rules anybody would want to put in place, but they do have cross-party support, these changes, and we just try to be as clear as we can. But things do change, and when the virus moves and the impact of it changes, then we do have to update policy.
Lastly, given that you know now about Yorkshire, how wise was it the Prime Minister, Home Home Secretary and Chancellor of the Exchequer went to Yorkshire yesterday, Secretary of State. That wasn't so smart, was it?
Well, if you travel and if you do it in a socially distanced way, then that is fine.
So it's all right for the Prime Minister to go on a train up and down Yorkshire, but nobody else can.
Well, we're not bringing in travel restrictions because the evidence isn't that that's where the heart of the problem is. The heart of the
Why
problem.
did he go to Yorkshire if there were such concerns? Why would he go there?
Well, because he's the Prime Minister of the whole country, and it's very important to get.
That he goes to an area that you were about to lock down.
Well, we are not. Well, we're not.
But did anybody warn him?
Of course, we've been discussing.
So he went against warning.
No, he didn't.
So he wasn't warned.
Nick, I'm terribly sorry, Nick. I'm not going to get involved in.
Well, why did he go to Yorkshire? It's a big country. He could have gone to Devon.
Nick, we're not bringing in travel restrictions, and it is absolutely reasonable for the Prime Minister to travel in a socially distanced way anywhere in this country, and we haven't got those travel restrictions in place because the evidence is that the growth in the spread of the virus is sadly from people meeting largely inside their own homes and visiting friends and relatives, and that's the sort of thing that all of us love to do, but unfortunately is also the source of the increased spread of this virus in these areas. Grateful for your time. I appreciate you're a busy man. Look after yourself and your family. About Hancock Health Secretary appearing here on LBC 727, away from Yorkshire and indeed away from the United Kingdom. We go to Germany, where German police have been asked to search a second former home of the Madeleine McCann suspect Christian Bruckner. The new owner is said to have called detectives last month after the convicted paedophile was seen on national TV news. She's a 30-year-old woman, a tour guide. She fears there could be hidden evidence of his crimes in a home near Braunschweig. To Jörg Luken, who is a freelance journalist in Berlin covering this for the Telegraph, joins me now. What might we be looking at? And just remind me, Bruckner is in Braunschweig currently, isn't he, serving time? Good morning to you.
Good morning, Nick. No, he's actually in Kiel, which is in the north of the country. He's serving time for a drug dealing offence on an island in the North Sea, which is somewhat, maybe about 200 kilometres north of Braunschweig. But the case is the Mali investigation is being picked up by the Braunschweig prosecutors.
And what is it? I've got a note here that there might even be a fear that a body could be concealed somewhere on this property in Braunschweig. Is that what local media are saying as well?
I think that is just purely speculation. I'm not sure where that comes from. I mean, what is true is that the woman who's taken over the allotment has told local media that she has trouble sleeping because she feels that there could be some buried on the property, but there's actually no evidence to suggest that is the case. We know that he moved to that property in 2013, so quite some time after he returned to Germany.
What are the authorities doing now, Jörg?
Well, the authorities have finished their search at his first allotment. We know that he moved there probably in about 2007, so much closer to the date of the Mali disappearance. They thoroughly searched it for 2 days with sniffer dogs. They excavated the whole area and they found a cellar underneath a kind of dilapidated old hut. They're giving nothing away, but they've clearly taken away anything that they could test for evidence.
Jörg Luken, thank you. Journalist in Berlin covering the story for the Telegraph. We'll bring you, of course, any details as that story moves on. We'll come back to your reaction. Why is it? And I don't mean this in an offensive way at all. And I remind you, my mother was born in Lancashire, then moved to Leicester as a very sweet young girl, actually preschool. Why are you not listening in the north? Why aren't you listening in Manchester and Bradford and Blackpool? What don't you get? You're not to go to each other's homes. You're not to go to religious ceremonies. It's quite simple. What don't you get? We'll look at that. Also coming up after the news, of course, the furlough scheme. This is Rishi Sunak talking about this earlier in the year.
From August to October, the scheme will continue, but with greater flexibility. Employers currently using the scheme will be able to bring furloughed employees back part-time.
And of of course, it is August as of tomorrow. So what does that mean for workers, employers, and the workplace? Details after this. It's 7:30. You're listening to Breakfast with me, Nick Ferrari, here on LBC. Let's get the news. Simon Conway.
The government's announced restrictions on different households meeting in parts of northern England in response to a spike in coronavirus cases. People in Greater Manchester and parts of East Lancashire and West Yorkshire are now not allowed to mix in each other's homes or gardens or in places like pubs and restaurants. The Health Secretary says it's because people haven't been following social distancing rules when meeting others they don't live with. Jet2 has asked some customers in Spain to return to the UK earlier than planned or risk having to make their own way home. The tour operator says it'll continue running flights from the country until Monday, but has cancelled all journeys after that. The NatWest Group has revealed a hit of more than £2 billion from the pandemic. It's far higher than even the most pessimistic forecasts from analysts. The weather becoming hot and sunny for most areas, the odd thundery shower later, and cooler in the far west with some rain, a high of 35 degrees.